everyone, and welcome to the Soul's Conquest, where I am in conversation with Sara Ahmad. Oh my God, she is an amazing person. We connected a couple of weeks ago. No, a couple of months ago almost. Oh God, weeks ago it seems.
Yeah, I think
I-
so.
yeah, it's been a while since we've been connected, and I was inspired by her story when we connected over a Zoom call. And I was like, yo, you guys need to hear this. You guys need to hear all the amazing things that she has done for herself. And you were perfect for the Soul's Conquest. So thank you so much for taking time out today and for coming on here and being present and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for reaching out. I know it's been some time, but I'm excited to be here and get to know you a little bit better. Share my story and have a good time today.
Yay, let's go. Woohoo. Awesome, awesome. So, Sarah, for those of the people in the audience who have never heard about you, what what can you share about yourself? Like, go ahead, the stage is yours. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the world.
Awesome. Sounds good. So hello everybody. My name is Sarah, and my background is in digital marketing, design, and also communication, and a little bit of supply chain. So I come from a world of where there's a lot of heavy emphasis on numbers and data. So I like to often describe myself like my brain is split into two. Half of it is creative, the other half is very quantitative. And the thing is, like, I come from a very large family, the eldest of five. And so there's always been that very driven component in my life. We need to be ambitious, you do the best that you can, you don't need to be hardworking. So having that ingrained into me from the very beginning, and then going after, especially in the traditional cultural, um, coming from that background, especially from my family, I had to also understand that going into the typical STEM options were not something that I wanted to pursue, especially engineering, law, and anything in doc. I knew I didn't want to do anything in medical. That was something that I was like, I cannot, that's not something for me. But when I decided to pursue something that was more creative, that was one of the first challenges. But I am a very firm believer that if you love what you do and you have true passion for it, it all falls into place. Because if you truly love what you do, you will never take no for an answer, and you will always try your best to go to another level higher,
Hmm.
and possibilities will come your way. And I'm a very believer of that. And and I guess I always like to say is, if you aren't the biggest advocate for yourself, you can't really expect anybody else to believe in you. So you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your vision in order to take that risk, because it's it's you. If you're not going to do it, this will.
Hmm.
Um, and that is where I started. I fought for myself, and I just did what I loved, and I enjoyed it. And I kept learning and learning more, and started to meet some fascinating people. Um, and here I am today.
Oh, that was amazing. I think we have got enough content for the podcast. Let's end it here. Just kidding, just kidding. That was wonderful, Sarah. So tell me a bit more about family dynamics and how it, like how it is a big part of where you are right now in terms of ambition and in terms of being driven to continuously keep working. Tell me a bit more about that. Like, I have experienced it being from an Indian family. Not necessarily in terms of like you have to win, but more in terms of like, give it your best kind of a thing. But I would love to hear another perspective, for our audience here. Like, how did it drive you? How did the family dynamics kind of change your or create a space for ambition and drive to take place?
Yeah, certainly. I have to say that it plays a very, very big role in who I am and the person that I've become. And there is a lot of good and bad that goes into that, because coming from a background, a very traditional first generation American background, and also my parents are very conservative. So being able to kind of challenge those barriers and going against it. So one of the things that I remember um, struggling with is one, just making sure that anything I wanted to pursue, anything that I wanted to do was like on equal terms of that of my brothers. You know,
Mm.
if they could do something, if they could produce something, if they had a certain opportunity, why didn't I have that? So starting conversations like in the home, like if there's things that I'm doing or a girl's responsibility, that same thing should be done for a man's responsibility too. So that conversation started very young for me because when I started to go to school and I started to see things and I was reading, I'm like, it's not supposed to be one-sided. Like it's you in these cultural roles, like it's not supposed to be this way. And I remember starting conversations very, very young. And then the thing is, I have a very large age gap with my sisters. It's 10 years. I know some people have a much larger age gap, but I remember from the moment they were in my life, I just had this sort of a parental protection over them. And I just thought to myself, I do not want them to be limited in any way, just like I have. And I want them to have the opportunities that's available for everybody else, regardless of gender or status or what have you. And my goal was that even if I couldn't do something or if it wasn't allowed for me, I wanted to be allowed for them. So that was my entire mission. And one of the first things I remember was like when I wanted to go to university and I had to go to the university that was closest to where my parents were living. I couldn't go to out of state and they also felt more comfortable if I were to stay somewhere near home. And at that time, as a student and as somebody who was seeing all of her friends and her classmates moving to different states, living on their own, I wanted that too. And for me, it was like, why couldn't I do that? Why can't I do that? But now the conversation has changed a lot. I can now understand and see the perspective of why my parents made the decisions what they did. I am able to empathize with that and understand the decisions you made.
Mm.
And but I still understand the perspective of what I wanted to as that girl. Because now I see my sisters and thank God, like a lot of that conversation took place where now I, my second sister, she is 17, she's going to be turning 18 in July. Now she has the opportunity and the choice to go to whichever school she wants to, whether it's out of state, and she can study whatever she wants. And same thing with my youngest sister, and she is 16 right now, about to turn 17 this year. So for me, and my biggest one of my biggest concerns, this is like an internal battle. I've seen other families and other siblings often become so jealous
Mm.
with their other siblings, and that will create some sort of sibling rivalry. Like, um, I wanted that. Why did they get it? So I always wanted to be in a place where I never want to be jealous of them. I always want to be like, I'm proud of you and I'm happy you
Mm.
got it. And so that's always something that I'm very conscious about because if my siblings can get it, that's a win-win for me too. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be one or the other. So there is a lot of that shaped the way who I am and the way I think. But honestly, I think the bigger credit goes to my parents because they were more open-minded, they were more progressive, and they didn't need to be. They've already done so much coming to another country that's not their home, learning a language, like starting from the ground up, and being able to trust their kids and having that confidence in us. I think that is the most empowering thing ever.
Yes, for sure. That is so, so powerful. I kind of wanted to ask you before we jump into that is what is it that
Mhm.
you do right now? You said that you love digital marketing, that you went into a creative field. So what is it that you're doing right now?
Yeah. So honestly, digital marketing is just a facet. There's
Mm.
just an avenue. What I love doing is problem solving. At the end of the day, all I'm doing is solving problems.
Mm.
And the way you solve problems is basically the skill set and the different knowledge and the different things that are at my disposal, right? And that could mean different things. For me, that means digital marketing and UX. So what I'm currently working on is I actually quit my full-time job in December, which is something I had never thought that I would do, which was
Mm.
a very big step in my life. And then once I once I decided to do that, I had a lot of encouragement from my family, my friends, my mentors, and they just really put things into perspective. And they're like, "Do you really need to be working? I mean, look at what you've learned, look at what you've accomplished. Like, do you really need to be in this space right now? Why don't you give yourself a shot? Like, believe in yourself." Again, going back to that original conversation, like, see if you could do it yourself and give it your 100%. Do don't give 50% in one space and do 50% something else. Give yourself the full attention you deserve and see how far you can take it. And at that point, I was like, okay, I've never in my life given myself that 100%. I've always been distracted by other things. But let me give this a shot. So I quit my job in December, which I'm very happy about. Now that I didn't love where I was working, I loved my team. I got the opportunity to learn a lot, but it was becoming very, very overwhelming. So I decided it was best for me to step back. And then in 2021, or sorry, 2022 is when I officially started my own digital marketing firm. And today we have about 4 people on my team, and I'm working on hiring the fifth person and then
Nice.
potentially an intern, which is very exciting. And I'm also about to start or launch my second business, which will be an app that I've been developing. And this has been something that I have been working on quite some time. So in the next, I think 2, 3 weeks, it will be out. So that's been very exciting.
Yay.
Big milestone there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? A lot of questions, but first of all, why did you decide to quit your job if you're comfortable
Yeah.
getting to that?
Yeah, for sure. Um, so like I said, I absolutely loved where I worked. My work environment, I mean, I had a lot of friends who were working at different companies, and I would always hear from them their work environment is toxic, their manager did that, their coworker did that. And I'm like, I cannot understand what you're talking about because I've never had that experience at my work. I've always loved my team. They still do. I'm still on great terms with them. I still in touch with them. But the reason I had to quit was because I was so overwhelmed and overworked. And I started to do some more research about um, what I am worth. And then what does that look like? If I need to be compensated, what does my salary to look like? What do my benefits need to look like? And then in terms of this workload, I was working insane hours, insane. So what happened was in February of 2021, I was actually moving teams. So I was moving from one team to another. So I was getting promoted. And the team that I wanted to move to, one of my coworkers was now becoming manager. And he is an incredible human. Questions asked, I need to join, I need to be on the team. And it started out great. I got a lot of opportunity to learn so many things, but it just started to snowball.
Hmm.
In February, I joined the team. I think around March or April, Apple launched their iOS 14.5 update, which completely destroyed a lot of the e-commerce campaigns that we were working on. So, we didn't have a protocol on how to manage that. We had campaign after campaign, client after client calling us and then like hounding us. They're like, okay, what are we doing? We can't run our ads. We're not making any more revenue. Like there's so many issues. At that point, I was like, I need to figure out a way because we don't have any protocol in place. So I spent the next couple of weeks really, going through trainings, learning trial and error to figure out how we can really solve this issue. Thankfully, I was able to come up with a solution. I created training videos. I trained almost everybody on my team, even managers and directors of other teams. And then once we started solving that problem, I started getting into more of the e-commerce space when it came to digital marketing. So that was becoming my niche and understanding how we can really improve campaigns that we weren't doing so well in because e-commerce was our weakest point. So once I started getting into that, my name was starting to circulate around other teams. So whenever clients or whenever my salespeople were struggling with, um, keeping the client on board, and they were talking about canceling or turning, the name that came to their mind was Sarah. They would be like, "Oh, let's have Sarah on board. She can save them. She can save them." I saved one, and then I saved two, and then I saved three, and then all those accounts started to come to me. So I have my regular book of business, And on top of that, I started getting all these extra accounts. And now we are in like April, May, June, July, August. And this is now we're in the summer and I've been doing this for a couple of months. At this point, we're now planning for the holiday season. When typically when the holiday season's coming up, you want to start planning in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to do that. But the problem is with the holiday season, a lot of clients will start to only run campaigns during that time, which means that we're going to get flooded campaigns. So I didn't realize how much, like how many of those campaigns I would actually get. So I had like, I don't remember the number. I think I went from like 180 campaigns or something to over 280 or something. It just doubled. It immediately doubled. And I remember during that time, I was already over my limit. I was already working overtime. And mind you, I was working until 8 p.m. some nights. Some nights I was working at 2 a.m. And I had to pick and choose, am I going to sleep tonight or am I going to eat? Because I didn't have the time to do both.
Wow.
And that's how bad it got.
Oof.
And when the holiday season came, I remember, I think it was either July, my manager and I were working together. He's like, Sarah, you're already, you're way above the books. Like I had the highest book of business on the team. I think I was pushing almost to like 600,000 managing. And he's like, we need to get things transferred off of you. You're doing way too much. I'm like, I know, like I'm getting overwhelmed. So I remember the day that he moved things from me, so I was finally at a manageable load. The next day, with all of these extra campaigns coming for the holiday season, it became not only like the same amount that I had, but it increased. So he was looking at my numbers. He's like, we just literally yesterday got you in a good place and you got doubled again. And it was only because people were requesting me by name. We want Sarah on this account. We want Sarah on this account. So yes, I'm flattered that people wanted to work with me, but at the same time, they didn't realize how thin I was stretched out at that point. And they didn't realize, I mean, I didn't realize um, how much I was putting myself through. And then basically, September and October came about, and those were the most challenging months of my last year. My health completely took a hit because at that point my body couldn't handle the stress that I was giving it, and I was pushing it through. And at that point, I had to make that serious decision and reconsider, like, what am I going to do with my life? I need to start to take care of myself because my body can't keep going. Like if I can't physically like get up and work, there is a problem there. So I needed to really just reconsider and think for the in my life, I need to take care of myself because.
Mm.
And then I started to realize, we're all replaceable. Nobody truly cares if you're out one day because you're sick. People will not care. They will just ask you, okay, is this done? I'm like, I was just absent yesterday because I had to take care of myself, and same conversations after. It's like nobody cares in this business. But for me, that was a very big wake up call that I can't continue this way. I'm not living life. I'm barely eating. I'm barely sleeping. Like that's not how a person should be living. That's not living.
Mm.
And it was because of that reason I decided to quit. I was incredibly burnt out. I'm still burnt out. I'm still trying to recover. It's been a whole year of doing that. So there's a lot of things that became into habits.
Mm.
And I've been spending the last couple of months really, one, sleeping and eating, prioritizing that, but then
Yeah.
also trying to unlearn those things and relearn proper habits.
Right.
And that will take time. That will definitely take time. And it's a process. But I have never been more happier than I have been now because I get to choose exactly what I want to do with my time, and I can take advantage of it the way I want to. And honestly, the way I had ended my journey there at my corporate life was um, I actually got nominated for an award and I ended up winning, which was an incredible surprise.
Ooh.
So, and I won like 3 days before my last day of work.
Yeah.
So it's like leaving with a bang. And I couldn't have asked for a better ending. So everything was just the way it was meant to be. So I was really happy with that.
That is a wonderful journey. Thank you for sharing that with me, Sarah. Thank you for showing up and telling me your true story. That means a lot. I want to ask you, you mentioned that your parents and your mentors really supported you during this period of transition when you were transitioning from quitting your job to starting something of your own. How important was their belief and the mentor's belief in you?
Oh, very important. If they hadn't believed in me, and if I hadn't gone to them with with their words having so much value, because it's not just it has value, it's also because I respect them. So that's why it has value. And for me, maybe if it's something that, imposter syndrome is a really big thing, and if I can't see it myself and my mentors and my family can, and they're able to see it and guide me, for me it's like, okay, if I'm blinded by burnout or by stress, my family, my mentors can see that vision, I will listen
Mm.
to what they have to say. So for me, that was a very big thing. I remember asking my mentors, I remember them sitting me down. They're like, one of my mentors was actually my manager in my previous job too. And he was like, look, I'm going to tell you in, I respect him so much. And he told me very honestly, he said, look, as a manager, Sarah, I never want you to leave. I want you to stay here forever. But as your friend, I want you to make the best decision for yourself. And if it's somewhere else, then you need to do that. And I still remember those words. And I still remember even my dad, he would say, like, he also said, do you, what was your intention coming here? Your intention here was learning. Okay. Have you accomplished that goal? I'm like, yes. And like, are you, do you see that there's more to learn? I'm like, right now at where I'm at, not really. I feel like I'm the one doing the teaching, not really the one learning. So he's like, okay, then what comes next? So he just broke it down to me, and I'm
Mm.
following his logic, and it just made sense, you know? So when people break it down, and like, you can't argue with logic, that you just can't. And
Yeah.
I often use the same technique with my clients too at work. And it just got to a point where um, it just works very well for me. And my dad, he's very, very good with that process. And he's able to, um, and I feel like he understands me so well in that aspect.
Yeah.
So when that pivotal moment happened, and I remember asking like Abu, should I do this? And he broke it down for me, and he's like, at the end of the day, it's your decision, but I think you can, like, I believe in you. You can do this. And
Mm.
at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. My dad believes, and it's not just, my dad is believing in me because he's my father. It's because I see him as a role model. I respect him so much. He is not just my father; he's also my mentor. He's also a friend. So for me, it's just not that people often just like, oh, it's my parents, my mom and dad believe in me. No, for me, it's a different type of relationship with my parents. If I talk about my dad, if I talk about my mom, it's because I have unimaginable amount of respect, and I'm so proud of them. But I have also have so much respect for them. So when they tell me something and they're like, "We're proud of you," for me that holds like a different meaning. It's
Mm.
because like my mentors, like these are people who have seen the world. Like they are not telling me they're proud of me because I'm their daughter. They're telling me that they're proud of me, or they're giving me advice because they truly believe in what I'm doing. And that is like an unreal power.
Mm.
It's like I don't know what the best way to explain it, but when your parents have that level of trust and faith in you, you feel like there's nothing that can stand in your way, you
So
know?
true, man. So true. I'm so glad that you had that support. And I respect that a lot, because personally, it's been a similar journey for me as well. Like, even when I was leaving my company because I was burnt out, um, my mom was the person who actually genuinely talked me through it, right? Like, she broke it down, like, how important is your health? Uh,
Yeah.
not necessarily in the same tone that Dumbledore said when he was questioning Harry, who put, like, why, when did you put your name in the goblet of fire or something? More along the lines of, like, why is this important to you? Like, is financial stability that important? And like, we had a
Yeah.
long conversation because I felt extremely guilty during that point. I was like, I can't leave this job, this is our source of income right now. And she was like, yeah, you are a source of being here, you got to be here. And also, like, that, having those conversations is something that I respect a lot. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to ask you, how important is asking for help? um, as an entrepreneur. I genuinely like, for me personally, I don't think that it's a vulnerability, rather a show of strength. But I want to hear your thoughts on it.
100%, 100%. There's only so much that you can learn on your own for sure.
Mm.
But I am always talking about. There's this one quote that I heard, and it was something along the lines of, you never want to be the smartest person in the room where people are listening to you. You want to be the dumbest person in the room, so you're listening to other people, and that's where you learn the most. And I want to be that person everywhere I go, because I feel like the more you are in that position, there's just so much wisdom and knowledge that you can learn from other people. And that that is equivalent to me for asking for help. If there is somebody there with experience and with knowledge, absolutely ask for help, because it doesn't make you a smaller person. No, I if anything, that will help you be. I mean, actually, I'm going to take a step back, because this is a great plug. Again, I'm going to talk about my dad here.
Yeah.
There's a thing that he says, and it's so true. I feel like the older I'm getting and the more I'm in this workspace, I always think about what this line that he always says. He's like, you should figure out what it is that you don't know. Once you know what you don't know, then you can find out how you can overcome those problems. When
Ooh.
you know what you don't know, that is one level of achievement. But when you don't know what you don't know, that is when it gets kind of challenging, because then you can get into that area of doubt or sometimes even selfishness. But
Mm.
he's like, it's very important to, one, yes, everybody has their own talents and their knowledge about their expertise. But if you're somebody who you're aware of the things you don't know, because then you can figure out how you can overcome that, who you need to contact, where you need to go. And that's exactly what how this plays into that. If I know, like for example, I don't know software engineering. That is an area of my life that I'm probably never going to overcome, because coding is not my thing. And that's totally okay. My strengths are somewhere else. So
Yeah.
what am I going to do? I'm going to try to find a software engineer. I mean, it's challenging. I did come across a few people and they gave me some incredible advice, but I'm going to still continue to find the next person who can be there, who I can talk to, and who I can share my challenges with, and they can provide me with some advice and maybe some progress or some solutions. And but the thing is, I know what I'm lacking, and I'm able to go after it. I'm not saying I know everything. Absolutely not. That's where the growing and experience like comes from. But not but understanding what you don't know, that is when you know who to ask for help and that you need to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that is the greatest source of growth, I feel like. And there's nothing in comparison to that, because you can't learn those things from a book. You cannot.
Mm.
There's just some things that you just learn from experience. And just because somebody else had an experience doesn't mean that you're going to have that same experience either. So it's so important for me to always listen to other people, learn from their experiences, because to me, that is just gold. That is, you cannot compare that to anything else.
Ooh, that was such a perfect answer, Sarah. Thank you so much. I want to dive deeper into your first business and then Bite Reel, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like I love Bite Reel. The first time you told me about it, I was like, this is exactly what I need. But before we jump into that, and I'm not trying to be biased here, I want to know more about your digital marketing agency, and you're just hiring a fifth person on your team. That is so amazing. I'm so happy for you. And that is so huge. Like for entrepreneurs out there, you guys know what I'm talking about. Hiring another person on your team is such a huge win. So I'm congratulating you for that. And I want to know more about your digital marketing agency before I jump into Bite Trail, which I want to get a bite
Absolutely.
of that. So sorry for that. I apologize.
Oh, no, no. I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah. So, okay. So Echo Media Inc. is my digital marketing agency. Now, it wasn't this um, from the beginning. I actually started Echo Media in 2016, and at that time, it was not, I hadn't even thought about it being a marketing agency. It was just something for me to kind of protect my information. So again, my dad, he recommended, because I was doing a lot of freelance work, and he's like, you have to share your information for like tax purposes and things like that. He's like, why don't you create a company, and that way you can stay protected and you can show that you work for that company, and that way your identity and your information, personal information, will be protected. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And at that time, I was just being experimental, trying to learn different things. I was really into photography and video, and I would go out and film like, you know, advertisements and videos and photography for other businesses, for other private events. Um, and I started to like really learn from that experience too. And then it was always something I had on the side. It was always something that I could use to experiment with and really learn from. And then, and I even had thoughts, well, maybe I should shut it down. Like, it's not a big deal. But my dad always like, you don't need to. Like, why do you have to shut it down? It's just something there for you. You can always use it. It's an asset that you can always use later. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's right. And fast forward to 2021. Now I'm thinking about maybe I should quit. Can I do this on my own? And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then 2022 comes, and I'm like, I'm gonna go full speed ahead and see how I can do this. And because the name Echo Media was already, there's media in it, digital marketing was, I knew I could easily fall into that.
Mm,
So I started working on different packages and different plans and putting in my expertise in there. I actually had one intern first. She was with me for like about a year and a half. And I was able to add somebody else on. And then this year, I think I hired like three additional people this year. So I have like a web engineer, I have a manager. So if if I can't be there in all the meetings, or if I'm traveling, I can fully trust her to be there in my place and take care of everything. And then the fifth person that I'm thinking about adding on, he's going to be my SEO specialist. So right now we're just working on some details before he's fully on board.
mhm,
So that's that. Yeah. So my marketing agency, we provide like both organic and paid strategies. So managing accounts, community management, but then also running paid ads. So this would include running ads on Facebook, Google, YouTube, Snapchat, Spotify, Pinterest, TikTok, whatever you can think of, like we run ads on it. And then also creating websites, doing SEO, and then also graphic design. So under graphic design, we also include UX design. So which kind of falls under our two by reels with a nice segue, but like designing apps.
mm,
So right now I have two people who I'm currently teaching. One person, she's on my team, and there's another person who actually I met her through another client I was working with.
mm,
She expressed that she's into UX. I was like, okay, I mean, if you want to learn, I'm more than happy to teach you. You can just join me when I'm teaching this other girl on my team. And she's like, for sure. So I've been like using Byte Reel as an example, and I give them little projects to work on so they can get that hands-on experience. And I teach them everything that I know and my experience, and learn from them too. I also question them, hey, if you were to use this app, like what is one thing you would notice? What is one thing that you would want to change? And just really learning from them too. I feel like this is always like a two-way street. I'm always learning from them, and so it's a really nice insight also.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's so wonderful and that's so powerful. And I'm so excited to see what else comes out for you, Sarah, because I genuinely love the work that you're doing. It's so empowering. And to do this is, I mean, as a digital marketing person as well, like I relate to this so hard. So kudos to you on being able to create this wonderful team, and being, knowing the power of delegation so that you don't get burnt out. Like you are taking the precautions, which as a burnout coach I'm happy about. So thank you so much for sharing that. My next question obviously is about Byte Reel. So can you dive a bit deeper into that and give us a taste of what you are creating right now?
yeah. So ByteReal is actually a social media app for all things food and recipes. So I want you to think about TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, all put into one,
Mm,
and it's only about food and recipes. So one of the biggest problem that I came across was people spend hours and hours searching for recipes or things that they want to make or want to eat. And whenever they finally come across something they want to make at home or a recipe they really like, there isn't a way to save that. So if you find a recipe on Facebook or on YouTube, if you find it on YouTube, you have to save it to a watch list on YouTube. Excuse
Mm,
me. If you find a recipe on Pinterest, you have to save it on Pinterest. If you find a recipe on Instagram, you have to
mm,
save it on Instagram. You can't, there isn't one hub where you can access all these recipes from one place. Even if you find something across the internet and you Google something and you find a recipe, the only thing you can do is either bookmark it or copy and paste the link somewhere in a Google Drive or in the notes, and that's it. But that can easily get lost. Or if you print a recipe or you have a screenshot, like where does that information go?
yeah.
Nowhere. There isn't anywhere to store it. So ByteReal is essentially that platform that I've created. You can, so just to give you an example, you can, if you were to find a recipe on Google, for example, you can copy and paste the URL and put it into the app. And let's say that the recipe has a blog in there too. So instead of reading all that blog information, you can just, and you'll be able to copy and paste the URL into the app. And the app will only extract the recipe and any images or video associated with that. And let's say that recipe calls for, it's like pudding for like 4 people. If you want to make it for like 10 people, you can change the serving size to 10 and it'll do the math for you. So you won't have to sit there and calculate how many ingredients you will need for 10 people. Or
Mm,
you can change it to 2 and same thing. Um, there's also a metric converter. So you can change everything from grams to cups to tablespoons, whatever metric makes the most sense to you. And there's a lot of different things like that. You can save recipes where I'm right now, there's a design feature I'm working on where you can create custom folders that makes the most sense to you. You can label them, you can create
yeah.
folders and organize your recipes that way.
Yeah.
So, and again, you can share it with friends and family because it has that social media component. You can rate recipes, you can comment, share, like, add friends. You have your own profile. There's, and it's completely free. So you don't have to worry. There's not going to be any ads there. So, coming from the world of digital marketing, I know how annoying that is. So I wanted to make it as user friendly as possible,
Mm,
and as open and welcoming as possible. So yeah, I mean it should be out in the next 2 3 weeks. Actually, Google has already approved it. The Play Store has already approved it. Apple is a little bit more picky when it comes to their
mm,
specifications. So we're just working on a couple of and then once we're done with revision, we'll be submitting it again. Apple has to review it, and once that's approved, then we can officially launch it. So it's fascinating
cool.
actually to see how the back end works because you never really think about
Right.
how that process works. So it's fascinating. It's completely new to me. So yeah, it's been wonderful.
Oh gosh, I'm genuinely, this is such an amazing product. I'm genuinely so excited for it and so happy for you that you're getting to experience this exhilarating moment of learning something new, right? And God, it is so exhilarating. And yeah, thank you for sharing that once again. I want to jump into this. We are nearing the end of our interview, like almost the second half of it. So I want to ask you, in both of these experiences of starting your own business, your digital marketing business and by trail, what were some of the obstacles that you faced and what were some of the solutions that you came up with to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So certainly for both, I face very different obstacles. So I'm going to talk about Echo first, the digital marketing agency. When I decided to shift from doing like photography, video to digital marketing, the biggest thing I was struggling with was having a foundation, making sure that I had the proper steps in my business so I know I'm headed for success. Because at this point, I was just trying to put things together and figure it out, and it wasn't working. I was working more, I was becoming overwhelmed, and I was like, something doesn't seem right, and
Mm,
I don't know what I'm lacking. Again, not knowing what I don't know is always the problem. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I can go to my dad, and like he's a business person, he knows how these things work. But marketing wasn't his thing. Creative. His industry is different, so he wasn't able to give me the advice or the direction that I was looking for. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I need somebody who can give me like one-on-one, sit down with me, look at what I have, and see where I need to make the most changes. And at that point, I decided to reach out and look for a coach who can really help me set that foundation. And I was able to find one. We have a wonderful relationship, and I truly didn't understand how much I was really lacking in just the foundation aspect.
Mm.
So we worked on this for months. We made sure that I'm setting up a system where I can also take time for myself and I can delegate properly because that's always been a challenge.
Mm.
And really work on a system and a foundation where if I were to become like double in size by next year, we'll be okay. I don't have to worry about all these things that was currently worrying about. I knew that if we were to double or triple or whatever, the growth didn't matter as long as I had that foundation. And that was crucial. So that did take the longest time because I didn't know how to do it. So being able to do that, seeing how big of a difference that made, because I feel like that foundation also was like decluttering my mind. Um, and it was also organizing the way I was thinking and organizing my thoughts, and that just reflected in my business. And so I feel like the two birds with one stone, and it just played hand in hand so well. Coming out of burnout, going through that too, I felt like it was one of the things I needed to just calm myself and just put things into perspective.
Mm.
And that was incredibly, incredibly, incredibly helpful. Um, that was my biggest challenge, up how I want my packages to look like, pricing myself properly, um, having that system in place. Those were the three biggest things that I was struggling with, and my coach definitely helped me with that. With Bite Reel, the biggest, like, there have been a couple of challenges. One, definitely software engineer, making sure I can find somebody who um, I can trust and who has like their best interest at heart too, in terms of Bite Reel. So I'm still searching for that person. Haven't come across that person quite yet. Um, but the other thing was also when I was looking into trademarking and patenting, every attorney had their own advice. It's like when you're going for a second opinion at a doctor's office, everyone has their own way of thinking and their own logic and procedure. And so working with lawyers and attorneys is the same way.
Mm.
And I talked to people, should I do patenting, trademark? And everyone gave me different answers. There was only one person who gave me the most honest answer. And he told me, he's like, look, when it comes to anything that's an intelligent property, um, it's always more difficult to have a patent. And he's like, in my professional opinion, yes, we can do it. We can do a patent if you want to, but I do not think it's worth it. That's just my professional opinion. And I have never heard anybody say something like that because people either want to make money and they'll do it because you want,
Mm.
or scam you in some way. And this was the first person who I didn't hear that from. And he was
Mm.
introducing me to like his other team. He's like, I think you should consider this. I think you should do that. And that was like a very good moment for me because I kept struggling and who I should talk to and people. And then this person, I talked to him for a couple of weeks actually, and he introduced me to a couple of people. He took the time. He spent hours with me, never charged a penny because. And I asked him, I'm like, shouldn't you charge me for the time you're giving me? He's like, Sarah, you're trying to figure out whether or not you want to patent. Why would I charge you for that? I haven't done any work yet. You're just asking me questions. And I'm like, whoa, like that's a new experience. So have a lot of respect for him. And then my second challenge was actually being able to find a team to hire uh, to work on ByteReal for developers. So actually, I came up with the idea for ByteReal in 2019. And in 2020, I decided, in 2019, I started to really think about maybe I should pursue this. But when I was looking at quotes from companies who could essentially develop the app, it was very expensive. They were quoting me upwards of $500,000. And I got so scared. I got so scared because
Mm.
it became such a high risk, and I could not. I wouldn't want to invest something that's so high risk. How can I expect somebody else to invest in something like this? So immediately I gave up in 2019, and in 2020, when my coworker who was becoming manager during that time, in 2020 during summer, and him and I reconnected, and we're starting conversations about me joining his team, which happened February 2021. And he was the only second person besides my dad who knew I was working on something or had plans to work on it. So he was the one who was telling me, he's like, Sarah, are you working on it? How's like your app going? I'm like, I'm not working on it because it's too expensive and it's too risky. And he encouraged me. He was the second person who encouraged me, and he was like, Sarah, I'm pretty sure there's another way to do it, and you can figure it out. I know you can. I was like, he's right. Like, why didn't I think about that myself? I can figure it out. And at that moment, my like a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, how can I make this happen? There's a problem. Let's find a solution. And at that moment, I realized that there was another company I had worked for, and I actually designed their app. And I remember I worked for them like I think for a year, and I was still in very good terms with them. Like, let me contact like the guy who I work for, and I texted him. Then he called me. I was like, hey, who did you hire? Did you have a good experience? And he's like, Sarah, I had a great experience. I hired this company. It was amazing. It was very affordable. I think I will make an introduction, talk to them, see how it goes. I interviewed them for 2 months, and after that, I signed the papers February 2021, and officially, I think March. I think we officially started in March development for the app,
Ooh.
and that was amazing. Like it happened so quick. Like for me, it happened quick. I was expecting that maybe it could take even longer, several months up to a year to find the right team. But I am having an incredible time with my team. They're incredibly honest, very communicative. I'm learning so much from them. Um, I actually had the designs ready and the research done in 2019. So when I met with them and I basically gave them everything I had. I was like, here are the designs, here's the research, here's the entire deck. And I told them, I'm like, if you think this is not good work, not good quality, and we need to scrap it and start from scratch, and start from the beginning, tell me and we'll do it. I know it'll cost more, but let me know. But if you feel like you can take what I have and build on this, even better. But you're the professional. You need to tell me. And they came back and they were like, Sarah, we looked at everything. Honestly, we should not start from scratch. You've done so much work that it's going to save us time. So we're going to start from where you stopped and we're going to build off of that. So that was, again, amazing. I felt like these people are speaking the same language as that attorney did. And I felt very comfortable with that, because that integrity was there. And for me, integrity is a very big characteristic that I like. I like to live by. So I sensed that from them. So that was a really big thing. So that was another challenge that I overcame that with that. And right now, my challenge is trying to find a good software engineer. I'll get there. But honestly, my challenge is the biggest thing for me in both Echo and Diet Real. The common factor is imposter syndrome. I always tell myself to be realistic, and at the same time, I could be maybe too harsh at being realistic and just be like, okay, it could both fail, which is possible. It could, but I don't want to set myself up for failure. If it could fail, that is fine. That's completely fine because at the end of the day, I still learned.
Hmm.
Even if both businesses failed, I still learned on how to do that. I learned how to create an app. I learned how to set up a foundation. I wouldn't have learned it if I didn't do it. So I'm just trying to have that sort of mindset. And if it doesn't fail, like if there's a slower growth, that's still growth. That means there's potential. So just having that mindset is so important. And I'm going to be honest, it's 24/7. It's never like that. You'll find time in the day where you'll have a lot of positive thoughts, and then a lot of it will be, can I actually do it? Am I in over my head? Am I taking too much than I can handle? That is very normal. That's very human. Just give yourself grace. That's constantly something I remind myself. Um, we're already doing so much, and life isn't a race. We're not racing each other. We're not racing against time. We're going. Everything is according to our own pace, and that's it. We just have to figure it out. And if we don't know, we find somebody who does, and keep going. That's it.
Nice. Oh, that was such a wonderful answer and an experience. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I wanted to ask you this next. So, this is a spiritual podcast. Originally, it started out that way, and then it transitioned into interviewing people and sharing stories across the board. So, I wanted to ask you, what are some of your spiritual or self care routines that you utilize to manage both your work life and your personal life?
That's a really great question. And I think more people should really ask this question. And I don't feel like people really do. They really focus on, the technical aspect and asking how you've done what you've done. And I think spirituality is a really great part because um, it's fascinating when you think about psychology and you think about mental health. Spirituality does play a really big role in that.
Mm.
And I was actually watching a video where this guy was talking about, his conversation with his therapist, and his therapist was like, if you feel like you're falling in a black hole, is there an anchor that you could use to hold yourself accountable and start fresh? And he's like, yeah, for me, it's prayer. I can always go back to prayer and make sure I can do that. And I started thinking, and I'm like, for me, that's the same way. Because a lot of things for spirituality that I kept reading was meditating and breathing exercises. And I'm like, that's dumb. Like that can't happen. Like well, that, and I didn't believe in it. But as I started to read more and more, I'm like, let me just try it. I'm completely discounting it. I need to try it before I have any opinions of it. And I started trying it. I'm like, okay, breathing certainly works. Like
Yeah.
your breathing pace, it does work. And it's strange, but it's fascinating also. And then in terms of meditating, taking time for yourself, for me, that's equivalent of prayer. So when I start my day off with prayer first, so that's typically like 6, 7 a.m. So for me, that is my time. I take that time to like do my meditation or breathing or prayer, whatever. Start my day off with a spiritual anchor. And after that, I feel like the first 2, 3 hours of my day is the most productive. I can get so much done out of that, like during those few hours after my prayer. And after that, I'm like, okay, if it hits 11 or 12, I feel like I'm done for the day. I've done everything that I could in those few hours. Now I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy my time.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to do that. I've always struggled in being more spiritual, and putting that first really changed my mindset, but also my habit, which
Mm.
I feel like also positively affected everything else,
Mm.
especially my business, because my business also is affected by me
Mm.
and my mental health and my spirituality. I feel like once I did that, it just had a domino effect on everything else. And it's so crucial, so important. So no, breathing is not dumb. It is very important. First hand experience. Yeah,
Ooh, love
very
that.
grateful.
Love that for you,
Right.
Sarah. My next question is this. So I always ask this question: what has been your soul's conquest, and what is your current soul's conquest?
Hmm, a hard question.
Mm.
I, I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question. I'm still the type of person who feels like I haven't really done anything. I feel like I haven't really accomplished anything. If I were to say this in front of my friend, she would be so upset right now.
I
But I still feel like
I know you were like a couple of meetings, and that's it. But I'm like, no, Sarah, come on. Oh, God.
I'm being honest. Like that's the first thing. I feel like I haven't done much. I haven't accomplished anything, and I think my conquest would just need to be myself and my thoughts. And I feel like once we have a stronger grasp on how we react to things and how we respond to things, um, that has a bigger effect on how we see things. I I don't know if I have properly conquered anything. I just see it as growth. Um, and I don't know if this is my greatest conquest because there's so much more to live and there's so much more to life. Um, I don't want to say I've already had my greatest conquest because there might be something that comes later that's even greater.
Yeah.
So I would like to answer that by saying I don't think I have achieved my greatest conquest. I think that will happen later. So I'm looking forward to that. And as for overcoming my greatest conquest, um, I don't think I've overcome. There wasn't anything that great, which and I'm only saying that because I'm very humbled that I had the resources to overcome it, you
Mm.
know, and I hope there is, if it, because great could mean good or bad. I hear great and I think of Voldemort, like, or Tom Riddle, or like Harry Potter, like they could be great, but it could be good or bad. So I
Yeah.
don't know if what the proper answer to that would be. I just see it as growth, and then I see potential.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Awesome. So let me actually rephrase that. When I say Soul's Conquest, it's kind of like, uh, if you have ever played video games, there is this main quest that you're on, and then there are many side quests that you get. You get potions from, you get armors from, you get weapons from, you get friends from, and those things genuinely help you in the main quest. So when I say Soul's Conquest, it's more along the lines of what has been something that you have acquired that has helped you in your main journey, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. Acquired definitely a better sense of self.
Mm.
Um, it's a I'm starting that journey, but everything that has happened has led to this point. If I hadn't experienced what I did last year, I would not have understood that boundaries are important, health is important, and that need to be prioritized.
Yeah.
And because I wouldn't have registered in my mind, I
Mm.
would have always thought about, oh, I'm the exception. That's never going to happen to me. I'm never going to be burnt out. But I needed to get to that point in order to be here now.
Mm.
But I guess my greatest um, would would be my family, my friends, and my mentors. Every person that I've met, I've always learned something from them, and all of my experiences with everybody I've encountered truly has framed who I am and the work that I do. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. I love that. I want to ask you this. What is something that has recently impacted your life?
Mm, I would definitely say the burnout.
Mm.
Yeah, because I never realized again, with the whole time and quantifying things, experiencing burnout, I had told myself, oh, in 2, 3 months, I'll be fine. I'll be over it. We're in April. I do not feel that I am over it. I feel like if anything, I am getting,
Deeper
I
into
still
it.
have so much work that I need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that has been my greatest, really understanding how burnout can affect your physicality, your mentality, your spirituality, like every little thing.
Mm.
And it is exhausting, it's frustrating. Um, but I know that this is something that it's better I go through now than later.
Oh, yeah.
There is value in this.
Yeah.
That has been my biggest thing. I honestly, I've always heard about burnout. I read about it. I always thought I was the exception. I will never experience it. I didn't realize how difficult it would be. And
Mm.
if there's one advice that I would tell anybody is please take care of yourself because there's only one of you and what you can offer, another person cannot. So if you're not healthy and content, you can't deliver your best work.
So true. Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
boils down to that, right? Like at the end of the day, that's all it boils down to. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for sharing that. In this interview, you have given me more content around burnout than I have. So, thank you for that. And my one last question to you, Sarah, would be this:
Yeah.
this is the one last thing that you would like to leave my listeners with.
Never take no for an answer.
Mm.
That would be the biggest thing. And whether that no is coming from yourself or from your inner demons or somebody that you know, never take no for an answer. There's always could be a different route to your answer or a different path. Um, don't ever take no for an answer because that means you're giving up on yourself. That would be the biggest thing because if that real wouldn't have happened because I had accepted defeat, but because somebody else was like, no, you can figure it out. They were right. But I could have also believed in myself and maybe saved like 2 years or a year, you know.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with good people. Always have a mentor. Surround yourself with good people because that is going to be your greatest source of knowledge.
Yeah. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. This was such a wonderful interview, and I am so blessed to have you here for you to have shared your knowledge with us and shared your experience with us. I'm sure a lot of people out there are inspired to reach out, to connect, um, and just ask for help, right? Like, I feel like that was something that was monumental in this interview, was to ask for help. when you require it, because a lot of times people out there have experienced it already, and you don't have to go through the entire process all over again. You can genuinely ask for help and kind of cut the process short, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
uh thank you so much for that, Sarah. That was so wonderful.
No, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time talking to you, and um, this was an incredible experience. So thank you.
Thank you so much.